go on doing things we already tried. There is no blueprint or best practice in this scenario. We have to be brave. We have to try new things. We have to work together and find new alliances and new friends. Today, as it is a very large and complex project, I'm only going to give you some examples of what we do within this project. And in Sweden, in North Sweden, is changing rapidly due to green industry investments happening right now. Companies that want to be the front runners in sustainability and are investing approximately 1,000 billion Swedish crowns in northern Sweden's upcoming years. 1,000 billion Swedish crowns. That is 12 zeros when counting. In euros, it's 80 billion. If you would have a Summer Olympic Games, it's 4 of them. It's a big thing happening. The new technology to produce steel can reduce carbon dioxide emissions by as much as 10% in Sweden. It's a sustainable part of the EU's carbon dioxide emissions as well. This, of course, means greater prospects and great expectation. It's an opportunity for generations to come. And also the theme for today, people, people, people. One big challenge is people, a way too small workforce. We have pretty much been the same number of people in Sweden since the 1960s. Our population has been aging for a long time now. This is a challenge that we share with a lot of other countries in the Arctic area. Today we are approximately 500,000 living in the northern parts of Sweden, and only a few thousand of them are unemployed. Northern Sweden has the country's lowest unemployment rates. Already, there is a huge problem recruiting for all kinds of work, not just industry. So who will work at these new plants? It's a big challenge. We might need as many as 100,000 new citizens in an upcoming 10 years. That is our chance, and that is our challenge. We are in desperate need of new people moving in. But how do we make that happen? 100,000 people won't fall from the sky. Where do we find them? How do we attract them? And once they are here, how do we make them stay, grow roots, and build their futures here? If our population is to grow with perhaps 20% in 10 years, that means that we need thousands of new homes, new schools, new shops and restaurants, hairdressers, nurses, doctors, sports centres, roads and public transport, and energy, of course, a lot of energy. And we need to use that energy in a smart way. Reuse it, make it circular. Just housing for thousands of new people is a huge challenge. There is a shortage of housing in most of the municipalities today already. And the upcoming recession makes construction companies unwilling to invest. The green transition is not just about engineers and hydrogen experts. If the new industry is going to work out, we need so much more. The industries can only thrive if the surrounding society thrives. We need to transform societies, not only where people can live, where people want to live. A sustainable, livable, and resilient society. And this multifaceted challenge is what North Sweden Green Deal is all about. We are trying to figure out how to transform our society in just a few years. There are so many aspects of it, fitting into each other like a big puzzle. And the project, it's a project funded 50% by the European Fund for Regional Development, ERDF. It's a joint venture between Region Norrbotten and the region of Västerbotten, a lot of municipalities, Kiruna, Gällivare, Luleå, Boden, Piteå, Skellefteå. We also have the hosting company, Swedish Lapland Visitor Board, the County Administrative Board in Luleå, and also Luleå University of Technology. The project started springtime last year in 2022 and will end this year at autumn 2023. The budget of a total is 112 million Swedish crowns. There are many optional ways to approach this complex situation, but we have organized it by dividing the project into 4 different work packages. And I'm going through them very briefly and giving you some examples after that. Work package with infrastructure and physical planning. New factors in new housing place major demands on physical planning. How can cities prepare for both new industry and at the same time increase the population? Building new where people can live and where they want to live, where there is a rich cultural life. This both includes examples of municipalities in building new, smart areas in the city, energy-saving devices, digital technologies and smart solutions. But it also includes turning non-popular areas by engaging and empowering citizens for transforming neighborhoods into sustainable, livable places to live. We have a work package about energy. The ongoing green transition requires changes to our production, storage, distribution and use of energy. How does the system work? Is there enough for all that is needed? How can we be more circular? We do know that the transition will need a lot of energy. Another work package, we're also looking into skill supply. Norrbotten already has a shortage of labour in almost all sectors, and even more staff will now be needed in areas such as industry, healthcare, education, service companies. This work package has to do with exploring ways solving this labour shortage. How can we demonstrate career opportunities for university students in Norrbotten? How can we better utilize the knowledge and experience of immigrants? How can we attract new skills to Norrbotten? And the last work package was attraction and receiving capacity. Attraction has to do with making local municipalities better of attracting new residents and welcoming those interested in moving to the area. Each municipality build their own individual concept and use the latest technology to reach out globally for new residents. How the municipalities can work to both attract new residents and improve their receiving capacity. The Swedes in general says that northern parts of Sweden is too far away, too dark, too cold. There is an increased awareness of the bright future of northern Sweden, but only 1 in 3 Swedes would even consider moving here. Per Weihed is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Luleå, addressed this when he said that we have an easier time recruiting scholars from anywhere in the world than from southern Sweden. There is a huge ignorance in southern Sweden about what northern Sweden actually is. The green transition is a window of opportunity to reach out to international talent. Lifestyle migration is an ongoing global trend. We really don't want to cannibalize on our neighboring regions. Any recruitment within the north will only create a gap somewhere else. We don't want to just push the problem from municipality to municipality, from region to region. We have to look further away as well. We need people in the south of Sweden to move to Norrbotten. But what we're doing in this project, and what we also really need, to explore the potential of lifestyle migration, attracting people from abroad. Northvolt battery plant in Skellefteå has been able to tap onto this trend. Of the first 1,000 employees at Northvolt, more than half of them come from abroad: Turkey, Italy, Philippines, Finland, and many other countries. Kainis Iron, an iron mine in Pajala, successfully recruited hard-to-find talent from South Africa. Both workers at Northvolt and Kainis mentioned the pride of taking part of the green transition and strive to make the industry more sustainable. Because the worst-case scenario is the fly-in, fly-out, where we don't have people coming to us and interacting. In the work package, attraction and receiving capacity, as I've mentioned before, we're trying to strengthen the municipalities in their capacity to receiving and welcoming new citizens. Here we gathered up with Swedish Lapland Visitors Board, a hospitality organization who has the experience in welcoming new visitors. And this time, we're not just asking to visit, we welcome them to come and live in our region. And also what we do in the municipalities, a lot of things. Maybe you need to internationalize your web page. When attracting whole family, what happened with the kids? Is there opportunity for them to go to an English school? We have those kind of examples now in Norrbotten. Many of the municipalities have relocation hosts. Because something we found out that if you're going to a new place where you're not familiar with the culture or the way of living, it's a very good thing to have a personal contact within the municipalities. And in Piteå, where this picture is from, they started up in May, and now they have 70 new residents living in Piteå due to this. So a good result. And North Sweden Green Deal is also working with the university in Luleå as a partner, the Luleå University of Technology, that is. And it's a problem for the whole Norrbotten. The students leave after graduate. For instance, engineers, 60% come from the south, and 60% leave after finishing their studies. What we do here is we have green deal buses. We take the students out to meet the municipalities, let them meet how their work are, how the business is, what the company are doing, and give them a personal contact, see how the life is outside campus. I've just scratched the surface on everything we do in this project, but I just wanted to give you the broad picture of the challenges we're facing. The organisation OECD appreciates the work in the study Rethinking Regional Attractiveness. North Sweden Green Deal is a great example of innovating multi-actor governance system to meet future labour demands. We are grateful for the support of the European Union. We also need support from the government, national authorities. The solution to some of these challenges we are not in our hands. In a recent press release in Sweden, the Swedish government promised to set up a super ministry to acknowledge the needs of the North to make a green transition happen. And we look forward to hearing more about that soon. Because let us make the best of this opportunity, and let's make it together. Thank you. Got a bit stressed there at the end.
Oh, sorry.
Huh? I had about 27 slides left, and she said 2 minutes.
Well, you get another few minutes anyway, but this time I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think is the greatest challenge with green transitions?
I think,
a few more minutes.
as I tried to explain, you have to look at infrastructure, the transportation, the energy system, the cultural life, your spare time, the education, the healthcare. You're pregnant. Is it possible to find a hospital near enough where you are? There are so many questions that are important, and what to say, which question is more important? It's the complexity and the whole picture it is, and also a big issue with this is time. It has to be rapidly, and we can't just do what we've done before, and we have to do it together. We have to reach out and try together, because what's happening in northern Sweden is just close to what's happening in Norway, happening in Finland. It's the same development, so I think that is the trickiest part.
Okay, thank you very much. So our next speaker is Tatiana Zygalstova. And Tatiana is joining us online, so I'm hoping for a bit of technical help here.
The pre-recorded video was Tatiana.
Okay, that's fine, yes.
Dear colleagues, I'm very glad to be here and present the results of my study, Interactive Emotion Maps as Visualization of Emotional Health of Citizens. The policies for sustainable development of cities should include issues of emotional health, which is especially relevant for the northern cities that exist in adverse natural and climatic conditions. The Nordic countries, as well as the rest of the world, have been affected by migration processes. The migrants represent different cultures, backgrounds, and life experiences. And it is important to study the differences in emotional perception of urban environments between the native residents and migrants in order to avoid emotional conflict and maintain emotional health of the communities. My research included 3 Nordic cities, 2 smaller ones, Haparanda in Sweden and Tornio in Finland, and the capital of Finland, Helsinki. Haparanda and Tornio have a rich history and traditions dating back to the beginning of the 17th century. The total population is over 30,000 people. The population of Helsinki is about 650,000 people, with about 10% of foreign citizens. The main aim was to compare emotional attachment of native citizens who had been living in their cities for more than 30 years and that of the migrants to specific places. In the present study, the concept of emotional geography is used in the sense of emotional connection between the residents and their places of residence, and the mapping methodology is employed. My study was carried out in 2 stages. In the first stage, 2020-2021, I administered a questionnaire with open-ended questions among 200 respondents and sampled 69 native residents residing in Haparanda and Tornio for more than 30 years and 13 migrants who have been in these cities for less than 5 years. I looked into the places of emotional attachment and rejection among these citizens. Then, the same questionnaire was conducted in Helsinki in January 2022, but this time online because of COVID-19 restrictions. There were 20 respondents in Helsinki. The questionnaire was anonymous and offered no answer options, so the respondents were free to describe their emotions and places. The result of the first stage of the study were demonstrated during a photo exhibition, My City, in Haparanda and in Tornio. An invaluable assistance in the organization of fieldwork and exhibition was provided by the Swedish photographer and editor Kenneth Mikko. The photo exhibition was funded by the municipalities of Haparanda and Tornio. Also, the exhibition showed interactive emotion maps of Haparanda and Tornio. The maps are published on my personal website at emogeography.com. Using the metaphor of the emotional urban environment as a tapestry of emotions, it is possible to conclude that the Swedish tapestry is colored with positive green and blue emotions, mostly joy, interest and pride, with minor inclusions of shame and sorrow. The only serious bold patch in this tapestry is the construction pit at the border. The finished tapestry is also colored with positive green and blue emotions, with a greater predominance of ease and sorrow. This tapestry is thinner because anxiety unties the threads and makes it thin. While the positive emotions, like the knots in a canvas, firmly hold together the emotional environment, the negative emotions loosen it. One of the achievements of this study is the possibility to visualize the places charged with strong positive, negative, and mixed emotions. I summed up the number of mentions of specific places by the respondents, and the findings are reflected in the table on this slide. The findings in the study revealed that special attention should be given to the places charged with extra negative emotions, which in the case of Haparanda and Tornio is the construction pit. Such places may distort the emotional balance of the environment and undermine the feeling of safety of the community members. On the slide, you can see quotes from respondents of different ages regarding the pit. The following recommendations can help maintain the emotional stability and emotional health of native residents in the studied cities. For more information, please see my article in the Journal of the Finnish Anthropological Society. It was proven that a strong bond with the place of residence is established if the person emigrated at a young age and lived in the place for at least 10 years. To experience moral emotions, a person must feel like a member of the local community and project the cultural context onto themselves. For example, a new city cannot elicit such emotions as shame and pride, because the person has nothing to feel proud or ashamed of. In Haparanda, we found proof of this hypothesis. The migrants did not single out places of shame and places of pride, and their emotional space of the city was poorly saturated with emotional places. The absence of these emotions may indicate weak emotional attachment to the place. They still remained within the boundaries of passive residency, which prevented them from creating a deeper bond with the city. The research in Helsinki demonstrated that the perception of the city by migrants in general was very positive, in many ways due to the resemblance between Helsinki and St. Petersburg. The city was associated with the sea, wind, cold, the harmony of urban and natural environments, brightness, outstanding history and architecture, comfort, accessibility, and opportunities. Anxiety was not associated with certain places in the city, but rather with large crowds of people or abnormal or threatening behavior of other residents. Those who had lived in Helsinki for 6 years and more had a slightly more positive perception of the city. They considered the city to be safe, and their emotional space was dominated by positive emotions: joy, comfort, and interest. This confirms the link between successful adaptation of migrants to the urban environment and the duration of their stay. Despite my original argument that migrants experience no moral emotions like pride or shame towards the receiving community, the findings in Helsinki showed that some migrants did feel pride of some places, for example the Senate Square, the Audi Library, and other. The development of moral emotions in migrant populations may expand our understanding of emotional bonding and facilitate their positive adaptation to new urban environments. Creation of emotion maps for different social groups of Nordic cities helps to identify challenges, forecast necessary preventive measures to improve emotional ecology of the place, and strengthen emotional bonds to the place among its permanent and new residents. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, our next presenter is Dr. Victoria Miles, Urban Environmental Assessment using WebGIS.
Hello, my name is Victoria Miles, and I'm a researcher at Nansen Environmental and Remote Sensing Center in Bergen. WebGIS was actually a hobby for me, but now it's becoming a part of my research, or also this term I learned a few days ago, part of my personal brand. So imagine the people receive 3,000 messages a day. So mostly these messages ask for action, so like just do it, be aware, buy, be smart, get scared. So psychologists, they have some tests. They kind of ask person look around and remember, for example, all red objects. Then they ask person to close their eyes and recall all blue objects. So this is kind of show us how selective our memory. Basically, we see what is shown to us, but how we can provide for the people information which is really of their concern, like information about own city, about own neighborhood, about own street, about own backyard. WebGIS, Geographical Information System. So it's a way to present information in space. So WebGIS transforms this, and now this information allowed us to create engaging interactive maps. And also what is most important, that this information can be affordable for anyone, anywhere, and on any gadget. What is urban environment? Urban area, it's totally artificial environment. So it has a very high concentration of people, and it has own climate, it has own soils, it has own vegetation and air quality, and also what's the most important, it's growing. The recent climatic and environmental changes, they are caused to prolong and more extending in time the cold and heat waves, and all these are things accompanying with the extra accumulation of air pollution and heat in urban area. But accumulation of heat and pollution is not even, because it's urban area have different structure. And also the people not always aware of these things happened, because urban heat island and air pollution, it's usually called invisible killer. So this is, you see that science say be aware, it's extreme heat. So, and how can we tell people, or how can we predict when this killer will come, when they will appear, and how people can avoid to meet them? So, and of course, science, they have a solution for this, so they can predict when this, where the condition might happen. And also using high resolution modeling, we can see the distribution of concentration of different air pollution in the urban area, and using high-resolution remote sensing data, we can see the heat accumulated by a certain part of the urban area. So this is, you see the image of Bergen. So, and if we overlay it with land surface temperature map, we can easily see that areas which is warmer than others. So, but also using remote sensing, we can also go to the building scale and map thermal environment. So then by investigating further, we see that the area with high concentration of pollution also collocated with area of high with accumulation of heat. So this is, we see this so-called double trouble areas, or areas with urban stress areas. So this is usually happen in areas with very low vegetation and a lot of asphalt, and also the areas with black and flat roofs. So this actually, by accumulating additional heat, they develop local inversion. But green and blue infrastructure significantly improve the urban area and make it much more comfortable. It's clean the air and make and cooling the temperature. But not every type of vegetation have such effects. So only high bushes, tall bushes, and trees do this. The study in Oslo shows that trees also can save humans' life. So, and how to tell people about our funding, how to tell what's going on in area where they live. So we put all in this information and web geographical information system, and so this things, our story, our urban air quality story, it's have information about air pollution, when they appear, how they distribute, and also we have set of map, which, oh my gosh, which people can use to see what's going on, and by clicking on some particular place on a map, they can find out more detailed information. And of course, people like stories, so by telling stories, we can inform them about what's going on and get their attention on some special issue, but also it can be used as an active learning tool and citizen engagement tool. So in Ursa Major, it's a great example of this. So we of active learning. So the students was involved in this in 3 engaging stories for some special urban issues in Trondheim, and then develop 3 inspirational stories which we put in our Ursa Major storybook. So far we have only 3 stories, but we hope that this will go expand, and we will put this more stories which can be used for inspiration of other students and communicate with stakeholders, and some other issues that people can also find out information about quality of environment. So some plants, they can tell about air quality. So, and by learning and observing this, we, so the citizens can find out what's going on in the area. So this is, we developed some project, some app survey, which can be download by on the phone by scanning this QR code, and so people go around. We can identify their locations. They answer some simple question and make pictures, and then all this information come in to some special central survey, and we can analyze this information and produce maps and graphs, and also this is also constantly updated, and we can see how many people participate in the survey. So the conclusion, yes, so smart story from smart city. So the WebGIS, it's a great way to tell, to visualize, to communicate, to engage, and to teach. So that's it.
Thank you, Victoria. Our next presenter is Professor Alan Fasalai.
Great stories for great people or smart citizens. We heard so many stories today that I shaped this presentation from different perspective. So my perspective is how we can conceptualize, how we think, how to make models. And this is what we start when we start with students. We discuss about values. And if I ask you or my students what are their values, what are their perspective, usually they say, oh, value, okay, relationships, friendship, religion, something like that. And there are many other kinds of value. If you go to website, you will see integrity, honesty, and other values. So there are many, many different norms. But when we discuss about urban development, urban environment, when we discuss about real estate development, we can see that we try to somehow compare, for example, psychological value or psychological worth with economic value. So we are balancing all the time what is more and less important and how costly it is in a way. So that's why we start to think about the concept. Okay, if I go to Arctic environment, or if I go to any kind of different environment, how should I understand what people desire, what they wish, how they see the perspective, what are the urban development there, what are the norms. So we have to see and to understand the background of people, their individual perspectives, their kind of lifestyle, how they identified, what are the identification of the environmental elements there, and also to see the differences. You know, like we experience our language when we are born, we of course learn our mother tongue, and this is also how we are learning architectural tongues. So it is, we are walking around, we know in Norway that we have a different environment than in Singapore or the other cities. So we have to understand these differences, and this is important. And we also know that there is no, let's say, ultimate norm. Everything could be changed, but some standpoints or some values or words, they need time to be changed. So from that perspective, we are trying to see about our values and to make new models. You can find many combinations behind values: value contribution, value sharing, value whatever. What we are shaping now at our environment, at our NTNU university, it's more to make a good norm which is public, private, people-oriented. So partnership where we put people in the partnership models which we are used. Public institutions, government, municipality, other institutions. Private benefit, of course, private income, private profit, they're very economical orientation. So when we put people into this match or in the model, it is not easy. But nobody's told us that it will be easy. But this is what we try to shape when we talk about digital tools, digital transformation. So we try to see the individual and social aspects, but we also want to understand that we have our own language and our own patterns which we want to keep. We want to have them here. There are many trends around which we can make combination of those trends. For example, when we deal with transformation of the environment, neighborhoods, then we can put health and well-being as one of the normative which we want to address, resilience, sustainability, and then to decide which societal group we want to address when we are developing digital tools, and also to make mapping. We have to make condition analysis to see what are the gaps in urban environment, or what we want to address. We put many different stakeholders. Many of those stakeholders are known. But when we come to different settlements, like we heard today in the morning and also afternoon, maybe we are not so knowledgeable. Maybe something exists and we don't know. And maybe they exist, maybe they can give us more stories about, or more valuable stories, how to keep the environment, how to understand the some special elements which we can bring to the new identity of the area. So here, this is a kind of transformative way of thinking, very concrete in one of the projects. So we took challenges and opportunities, and we try to make a good partnerships with the others. And if I ask you at this moment, what I am usually asking my students, which of those situation is better? it's easy to say. The top, on the top right, it is better, of course. It is better from our perspective. But to come from this situation, from below situation, left, right, to right, we are losing also a many different we are losing many different situations which people are used. They can have directly accessibility to their house. They can come with car. In the other situation, they can't. And so many other challenges. So we have to find solution before we say, oh, we are going to close all the roads and we are more greeny and we are more super. This is the challenge which we are addressing today. So those are, let's say, when we say social sustainability, yes, social sustainability, we want to understand the balance between different of those social sustainable elements. Is for the people, is that health and safety more important, or cultural value, or accessibility, satisfaction? So those are things which, when we go there, go to the sites, when we talk about concrete situation or problems or projects, then we try to engage people by doing different digital tools and solutions, and sometimes they're just platforms, sometimes frameworks, sometimes AI or VR, whatever they are. This is what I wanted to address. I will not go to daily business like how we are creating, but just to remind us, yes, we have to rethink again what we want and how we want to approach. Thank you.
Our next presentation is about on aging in the Arctic by C.D. Arntzen and Dr. Ratna Rajaran. Are you going to speak?
It's just me alone today. So hi everyone, my name's Jan. I'm a family doctor and part of the Aging in the Arctic team. We're focused on gathering insights on how to improve the urban environment for elderly in winter, especially in northern Norway. How do I move this? It's a partnership between Arte Arkitektur, which is a architecture firm here based in Tromsø, and Bodø Commune, which is the commune serving the second biggest city in northern Norway. We've got support from the Inclusive Cities Dorga program and Research Council of Norway's Pilot Helsa program. Now, I moved to Norway in 2021, and before I came, I Googled winter in Norway. Part curiosity, mostly fear, and on Google, I saw this, and I thought, great. Northern Lights, blue skies, fresh snow. I don't know what the big fuss about an Arctic winter is. But then I came here. Oh. Winter's blocked. And this was the reality. That's the car after being out in the outside overnight. So yes, there were days like that with clear blue skies, but there were also days with -5 and wind, crying toddler in the back of the car. Here, down in the bottom left-hand corner, is all the different shovels required to make a path safe for people to walk in. Actually, the project idea started on an especially bad day when we, or more likely I, got the car stuck in the middle of the road, and I asked my wife, how do elderly people manage here in winter? And she responded, I don't know. And now we're together working on this project to find out. So why Bodø? Like many cities in the Arctic, we have long winters, between 6 and 8 months. Like many places in the world, we have a rapidly aging demographic. Up to 2050, the over 60 population globally will double. In Bodø, 80 to 89 will increase by nearly 150%, and over 90s will triple. For too long, care and the well-being of our elderly population has been seen only as a health and social care issue, and that's just not true. Ageing is influenced and driven by physical, psychological and social factors. To create an age-friendly society and city, we must consider the way cities are built, how we move around, where we live, where we meet, plus health and social care. Digitalisation has a role to visualise this. Our urban designer will map the city centre and add photos and videos in winter, insights from the elderly, and relate these to the places in the city. This will show areas of inaccessibility, interest and necessity. We will also attempt to create an accessibility metrics for winter. Digitalisation will be a key tool to communicate how elderly use and live in our city. We've picked three main challenges to try and prevent and reduce. Now, when people think of the three, they normally see it a bit like this: falls as something separate, away from those two. But actually, the reality is this: an increase in any one of them will increase the risk of the other two. For example, if an elderly person is depressed or on antidepressants, that in itself is an independent health risk factor for falls. Many, including many health and social care professionals, don't consider social isolation as a real illness. But the reality is it's a significant and dangerous health risk factor. It impacts the heart, muscles and immunity, amongst other areas. Two of the research that really kind of struck me were that social isolation can increase the risk of dementia by up to 50%, and the overall health risks related to social isolation can be the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's clear that we were never meant to live life alone. In terms of falls, it's a known fact that it increases mortality and morbidity in the over 65s. 85% of all injuries that occur in the over 80s is due to falls. The cost: in Norway, a fracture or a break of the hip can cost anywhere between €30,000 and over €900,000. I actually think this is an underestimation because it doesn't take into factors like social care costs, home adaptations, time taken from family to look after the relative. A lot has been spoken in this conference, and rightly so, about climate change, and it also impacts the elderly as well. Counterintuitively, stable cold weather is actually very safe because snow has a lot of grip. Now, the problems that occur, and people who live in the Arctic will know this, is episodic rises in temperature. That's when the snow melts and then freezes again, and we end up with what we call in Norway glut, and that's incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So you can start to see the holistic picture of what impacts our ageing population and how fragile that can be. In terms of our target group, we have based it purely on function, not age. And we're basing it on the Rockwood scale, which is done by some of our Canadian colleagues. The group that we are looking into range from people who have no active symptoms but aren't active very often, up until people that are obviously slowing down and struggling to remain independent. So finding it difficult to do things like heavy housework and going outside alone. The method we're going to be using is a service design method called the Triple Diamond. It is a user-centric method which we're in the insight stage at the moment, and we're looking to gather the it's user-centric. So we gather user insights, and these user insights will be used throughout the process. we're aiming to understand deeply the day-to-day challenges and experiences of the elderly people without any preconceptions. Our team is multidisciplinary, including urban designer, architect, urban planner, and myself. And the hope is that with our different disciplines, we'll ask a variety of questions and hopefully get some innovative and interesting insights. And we're going to get these insights by using a variety of different methods: city walks, interviews, observations, surveys. We'll also be talking to professionals who are concerned with the urban and winter environment. This includes transport, housing, town planners, as well as health and social care workers. All of this is a focus on how do we keep our elderly population healthy, active, social, and happy in winter. We believe the insights that we can gather during this phase can create a common understanding, which will form the foundations for genuine cross-collaboration so that we can develop sustainable, impactful, user-centric solutions. Here is the core team, and if there's any interest in collaborating, contributing, learning more, anything, please contact us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next presenter is Maria.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, first of all, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Arctic Frontiers team and the organizers of this panel. Fantastic events. Thank you so much for making this happen, and also Ursa Major Project that supported this panel today. So my presentation, my name is Maria Rozanova-Smith, George Washington University, is about smart city governance amid diversity growth in the Arctic, promoting inclusivity and public engagement. There are no easy questions, and that these are very, very profound and quite serious and crucial questions that we are discussing today throughout the entire day in different panels. We're talking about new methods of governments and tackling new challenges, especially here in the north, in Norway, in Sweden, in Finland particularly. So what we talked about, like new project, new ambitious large-scale project in the Arctic that are aimed at to meet the increasing demands in minerals for clean energy technologies that require 6 times more mineral inputs in 2040 than today, are likely to lead to multifaceted challenges for northern local city planning, especially when it comes to western border and northern border, the presentation that we heard today. So this transition is likely to exacerbate already existing demographic and socio-economic challenges in the northern region of our Arctic countries, particularly pressing issues of growing labor deficit in the north, ongoing local youth out-migration, and particularly female flight, an increasing diversity of labor force and population diversity in northern cities. So upcoming rapid structural changes against the full spectrum of demographic, economic, and socio-cultural challenges highlight the necessity for further reconsideration of existing models of public administration in the northern cities. So the potential adequate response could be an integrated model that combines 2 models. One is smart city and another one is sustainable city. So we will talk about smart sustainable city governance today. This model relies on innovations in information and communication technology, aiming at achieving a balance between the needs of social, economic, and environmental urban development to optimize citizens or people's in general lives through greater public participation. So the emerging concept of smart, sustainable city governance will be effective if it prioritizes a citizen or people-centric principle approach, equally focuses on both social sustainability and economic goals, and doesn't prioritize only economic targets while doing further city planning. And also if it maximizes overlap of political and civic spheres, like on this graph, as you can see, like political and civic almost overlapping together. So prioritizing social sustainability. It will allow creating more inclusive society, enhancing the empowerment of all city dwellers, and fostering more resilient communities of the North. Integral elements of this governance, of this model, will include reinforcing social inclusion and smart city equity. This is what we discussed here in this conference today and yesterday. So what does it mean to be smart? So to be smart, social equity should take into account systemic inequalities to ensure everyone in the community has access to the same opportunities and outcomes, including easy access to user-friendly digital technologies that accommodate growing linguistic diversity, growing cultural diversity, as well as different people's backgrounds and levels of education and computer training. So, for example, when we worked last year in the Arctic regions, worked on the project of gendered impacts of COVID-19, so it was pretty stressful and critical times for many communities, remote communities of the North. Technologies, some of them really addressed people's needs, but some of them actually made their life more difficult. So when the government closed the offices and instead they offered to fill the forms, digital forms to apply, for example, for unemployment claims, many people found it completely different and almost impossible, because it seems like this, using these digital technologies that were aimed at easing their lives, they complicated their lives because the language that these forms use. So it's not about the smart tool, it's also about how user-friendly it was, whether they could address people's understanding and their needs in terms of how to fill these forms. And many people just failed or had to ask relatives or friends. So it's not just about the technologies, it's about who uses technologies and how the whole process is organized and designed. So many people just complain that seems like these forms were designed and terminology and that requires certain understanding of the system with people with legal background or background in public administration, but that was completely complicated, made it complicated for so-called general public without specific knowledge. So we have to remember that the Arctic is diverse, and it's not like one size fits all. And when we offer these different tools, we have to make sure that different people, different age brackets or demographic or cultural backgrounds, they will find it really user-friendly. So another integral element of this model is collaborative planning based on a community-driven, bottom-up approach, where city dwellers are integral part of designing and developing smart cities policies. And this is probably one of the most challenging part, because current challenge is that we still use top-bottom policy approach when city leaders are deciding what is best for citizens or for their city dwellers, and focusing on technology platforms, but not on links between political institutions and the general public. So smart information and communication technology tools can foster citizens' participation, dialogue, and voicing, and can create platforms, digital platforms to identify, articulate, and help authorities together with citizens to address people's needs. So this is one of the example of our digital platform. Again, when we work and conducted interviews, we just realized that during the focus groups with city authorities, the question was, it was the project about gendered impacts of COVID-19 on women. So the question was, do really women have special needs? Do they have needs that have to be urgently addressed? This is what we discussed. And this made us realize that actually we don't know much about specific groups, even large groups as women. And women also, this is not just one group, there are different brackets, they are diverse. So how do we learn about their needs? And we have to go back to roots sometimes. Even though to play smart, we have to make sure that we don't lose our roots like storytelling. This is indigenous tradition, and this might be very, very helpful, how we can learn about narratives, how we can learn about pressing needs and issues in the society. How can we touch base with the general public? So this was one of our project outcomes, which is digital platform for women's voices, and we recorded different stories from Nome, Alaska, from Anchorage, from Husavik, Iceland, and also from Akureyri, the northern part of Iceland. And where they were sharing their experiences. And this is how we can learn. So it's about lessons learned and about smart future planning. Thank you so much. And this was presented yesterday at the reception. If you didn't have a chance to see it, we're still here, so we'll be happy to show you. We have big posters, and also it's all available online. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Our final presenter today is Anna-Marie Kiviaho from Finland. She's not here. Okay, that gives us a little bit more time to discuss and ask questions. So we have about 15 minutes for people to ask questions. What I can do is ask all the speakers to come up, and then you can pose questions, and we can have discussion in the time that's left. Mia, please, you're welcome. Okay, do we have any questions? Yes?
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. My name is Elena Zhurova-Sater. I work at Haino Center, North University. And we also have a group working with smart cities. And my question is basically to all of the people presented, because we talk about Arctic smart cities. But what is special about the Arctic smart city? What is the difference between the Arctic smart city and the smart city, let's say, in general? We have many opinions, but very interested in what you think. Maybe if each of us could say just one point, why Arctic smart city is so special?
Yeah, who would like to start?
Yeah, my opinion is that Arctic city is special because it's like an island surrounded by nature, so it's they're very isolated. They're not. We don't have connection between cities as we have on lower latitudes, for example. So the city is very isolated, and if they don't have some central point, so that the city will not survive. So this is, I think, what my opinion. And plus, of course, the climate change also affect the cities. They're very vulnerable because it's, as already was told, because it's permafrost. So, and this old urban infrastructure is very sensitive to climatic change.
I think part is also like I said, the population distribution. So often there are small rural areas, and therefore now there is some of the industries are starting to move away and become more centralized. And as a result, kind of the sustainability of these smaller places are much more tangibly at threat, like was just said. And now, actually, we have an opportunity, whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, we couldn't imagine the possibilities with this connectivity and the internet and working with technology. So I think there's a threat, but at the same time, there's this wonderful opportunity which is there.
It's a very, very challenging question, but I would like maybe to add, it's all about in the Arctic specifically, and maybe to add to what already has been said, the value of every single resident of the North and the governance, the smart governance is really, really crucially important, because if you don't play smart, if you lose at least 10% of the population, some cities won't be able to survive or to thrive. I'm not even talking about thriving, even survival. We worked in Luleå this summer for 3 weeks. We spent like in Kiruna, in Western Boden, Northern Boden. How to survive? This is actually the question. So southern cities like Stockholm, they can play smart, but if northern cities do not play really smart, they can find themselves in the most critical situation, not even tomorrow, but later today. So it's all about governance, and it's about the value of every single resident in the North. Thank you.
It's a very interesting question, but we are talking about smart technologies. We are talking about smart services. So cities, of course, they can be different, and each part of the city is totally different. So we need to understand what we emphasized several times today. So if we say the Arctic, of course, it is special, but also if you go down to other cities on the south, they're also special. So how to use the power of smart technologies to be closer to city, to engage citizens, to talk, to understand, to react in quicker. All these visions which were made by different municipalities. We have to be sustainable 2030, climate neutral. Okay, if we want to reach those climate neutrality around the globe or around Norway, we have to move faster, to be stronger, to really do together. And what we approach in TNU, we can do together if we also engage people. And people can be inhabitants, they can be residents of small area, they can just be children, they can be elderly. So we need their power, we need their strength to go together.
Yeah, would you like to add?
Yeah, interesting question, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I think talking about what's the difference with a city to be smart in the Arctic and not in the Arctic, I think you could talk about where it is, the population, and how far it is to other things. But I think maybe for me it comes down to the mindset of the city and the population, and that in Sweden we have to change the mindset of the future, because we have a lot of innovation, we have the universities, we have the industry, we have a lot of things that we need to develop smart cities, to be a smart city, but there's something in the mindset that's makes you a bit small when you're not. You don't have to be. So I think maybe the mindset, if it makes any sense to you.
Very interesting perspective. Very different.
Just intrigued when you look at somewhere like Longyearbyen, where they have a lot of kindergarten and primary school, but secondary school doesn't really exist. And are you sort of going to have this demographic wave that is actually wave after wave, but still you keep a steady population? Is that a model that we're seeing here in northern Scandinavia? Where people move to an area for 10 years, make a certain amount of money, but then as life moves on, they move back to the metropolis?
I can answer from another perspective. Let's say sustainability is somehow raised up in kindergarten, in elementary school, secondary school, so there is a way. So we made a game for city transformation for elementary school for children 8 to 12 years. But they had such a huge knowledge about environmental issues. So we were surprised. We didn't know that it is so good. And what we were approaching is balancing all three pillars, not just putting a lot of effort in from an environmental perspective, because we said, okay, if you are only environmentally oriented, what kind of city you are going to have? Yeah, it is forest city, but can you live in that city? Can you also run this city? So we try to force them to balance. So yes, it is.
Would someone else like to add to that?
I think it was definitely not on the panel, but more on the other side of things in terms of an ageing population. I think imbalanced demographics in general are a sign that there are issues related to sustainability. So what was talked about, I think, in Mia's presentation about can people envisage being there and staying there, not just coming and going? And this kind of, it's funny because we've spoken all day about technology, but without the human element, the sustainability is just gone. We can't compensate for an imbalanced demographic. And I think, there are lots of ways of doing it. This is what the fun thing and the challenge is. It can be injecting in a new industry. It can be mapping. It can be understanding what attracts people and keeps people there. But fundamentally, we need to look into areas where there is imbalanced demographics and see actually can we fill in the holes, and can we create a place that people want to come here and can envisage being educated, being upskilled, having a job, having a family, and then being safe to grow old. It's a really great challenge, but it's a great motivation. I think there are technologies available, but the key thing I've heard in lots of talks was that technology needs to not run away with itself. It needs to be user-centric. It needs to take people with them and be inclusive of the human factor, because that's the key to the heart and soul of any place, really.
Any other comments? Okay, time for one more question.
Thank you. I would like to take this discussion one step further. I just had to elaborate further on this untapped human resource that we've heard a discussion about just recently. Being in the field of social innovation and working with digital tools in multidisciplinary context as a sociologist, I've witnessed a lot of discussions where the original idea was to produce a technical or a digital solution. And someone in the group says, oh wait, this technical solution already exists. And then another idea comes out, oh wait, this technical solution already exists. It's not being applied. So in many cases, I've heard that the need, especially when people are concerned, that the need is in social innovation, organizational innovation, in implementing the existing tools or integrating several ones. How does the panel respond to this idea? Does it sound familiar? How do you react?
many technical and technological solutions already exist, of course, but innovation is also how to reuse them and use it better. So there are many challenges, and even if we can construct on something what exists is even better. So maybe there are shortcuts, we are more effective at the end. So we talked about the change of behavior. So even, let's say, from my perspective, if we see something that people are already used to some way of using technological tools, and we are bringing them and put on the higher level, let's say TRL 5 or 9 or whatever, just using them and produce them further, it can be also a good response. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a really, really fantastic question. And I would like also to add that there are so many so many tools, technical tools, they do exist. But just working on this platform for women's voices, I would like to share my personal experience. It was so difficult to bring women to this point when they were ready to share their stories. So it's all about social stigma. It's all about feeling that you're vulnerable when you share what is really important to you. And that's probably about mindset that can be changed. And during the COVID-19 crisis, we actually saw different movements when all of a sudden different groups, they started opening up. They started talking about what is really important to them because they couldn't feel like they are silenced. They couldn't stand the silence anymore. So this is something that's still about our social norms, about how we feel about ourselves and others, whether we really trust others when we can openly share what we feel, or the opposite. We don't want to be spotlighted and criticized for opening up what is really dear to us, to our heart, and whether our voice will be heard or not by city leaders, for example. How can we guarantee that? So that's about mindset, a new way of thinking and acting, I believe. Thank you.
No, I completely agree. I think sometimes we get fixated on the technical aspect and trying to technically innovate things, because almost it's an easier thing, and not an easier thing, but there's a solution, there's a tangible, whereas the kind of organizational elements, the governance, the infrastructure, the creating that value that was spoken of is so much harder because it's intangible. And I think any huge leap in technology will cause societal, economical and value related chaos. You look at the Industrial Revolution, when all of a sudden people could travel across the whole country in a space of hours. You know, it completely changed the way that their economy is built and the way that people interacted with place. And we're seeing the same thing here. It's really good to kind of come to these conferences and kind of see that so many people are dedicating themselves to these really important questions. And really, it's just a jigsaw puzzle. And for us to come up here and answer it in 2 minutes, I'd be 100% wrong. And actually, it's just kind of this thing of, I hope we can get around the table a bit more and people can come with their expertise and lifetimes of research and knowledge and actually look at the same problem from different perspectives, because that's the only way I think we're going to find a sustainable solution to a lot of these challenges that you posed.
Thank you. Great.
I would drink to that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So unless there is a very urgent question or a comment, I think we can close this session. I would like to thank Mia, who has come all the way from northern Sweden to give a keynote speech to us. And thank you very much to share your insights with us. Thank you very much, all the other presenters. We can give them a round of applause. From Washington. Yes. So I forgot to mention at the beginning, this session was actually coordinated through the ERSA major project, which is financed by the Norwegian Research Council. Our session has ended. This room is available after that. So since we have a lot of these ERSA major partners here, if you would have the opportunity, we can stay on for a little bit longer and wrap up our stuff. Thank you very much, everyone.